If you enjoy what you hear here today, please consider supporting me on my Patreon page. Every dollar helps, and you get to see content that you won't see here. Chapter 22. Debriefing.
All that really happened?
Broadsword and Shining Armor were waiting in the guard barracks of Kennerlock Castle, as they had been instructed to by Princess Luna. While they were there, Scarlet Snow and Valiant Snow had arrived to greet their respective husband and father. Valiant was busy in one corner or other, examining a bunch of guard equipment with a look of awe on his young face, and while he was doing that, both Shining Armor and Broadsword had told Scarlet everything that had occurred on their mission, leaving the former EUP mayor in a state of disbelief.
Believe it, Broadsword responded. It was a nasty situation. Nothing went according to plan in any way.
But it could still be considered a success. We did what we went out there to do, Shining Armor pointed out, despite the cost.
Sometimes the cost is too great, Broadsword muttered. Queen Twilight is not doing well.
Shining's face fell.
Yeah, I know. I don't like being left behind, now of all times. Why did she do that? Scarlet inquired. Doesn't that seem a little odd to you? I mean, wasn't the whole point of bringing ponies to begin with because we can't be infected with whatever is happening to the changelings? It was, Shining Armor confirmed. But Twilight was adamant. I wasn't meant to be here anyway, and she wanted to waste no time reporting back to the other changeling queens and all.
You have to admit, though, it is a little odd, Broadsword voiced his opinion. She even left her assistant, Spike, behind. She never goes anywhere without him.
He was sent to gather her friends, nothing odd about that.
Broadsword shook his head.
Perhaps, but rush or not, just bypassing Princess Celestia and heading back without even seeing her first also seems rather off for her. You know how close those two are.
Shining went to retort, but it died in his throat. The more he thought about it, the stranger it did indeed become. He could easily understand leaving him and even Spike behind, but Celestia was a different story. Twilight, even in a rush, would always defer to Equestria. She could have headed straight to Draco's Hive, but she went to Celestia first. It didn't make sense to ignore the Princess of the Sun now. It is strange, Shining admitted. But what's done is done. I think we just have to trust that she knows what she's doing.
Broadsword grumbled. Nothing about any of this gives me a good feeling.
Nothing about what?
Valiant asked, the Colt having rejoined the group after he finished ogling the armor.
Oh, nothing you need to worry about, honey,
Scarlet stated with a small smile directed at her son. Valiant pouted.
Oh, but I wanted to know.
Sometimes when being in the guard, you have to work on despite not being told everything, Broadsword stated. And you do want to be a guard, right?
Valiant's eyes immediately brightened, and the young pony nodded enthusiastically, earning a round of chuckles from the rest of the group. He didn't quite know why the older ponies were chuckling, but as a future guard, he now knew that sometimes you just had to soldier on, despite not being told everything, so he didn't question it. As the amusement brought on from her overly eager son died down, Scarlet sighed.
So how long is Vladimir meant to be?
They wanted to check him out, give him fresh bandages and the likes. They'd probably keep him in much longer if Princess Luna hadn't wanted them to be quick about it, Shining explained. Aside from the missing wing, though, he was doing all right. Anything else can be quite easily mended by some good sleep and rest.
The wing will need replacing, Broadsword pointed out, but I don't think he'll complain about having a metal one.
Can I have a metal wing when I'm older?
Valiant asked.
No!
Scarlet and Broadsword both shouted simultaneously. Valiant huffed, falling back on his haunches and crossing his forelegs. His parents simply rolled their eyes in response, but knew he'd get over it quickly enough. Anyway, Shining Armor continued on. Once Vladimir is here, we need to report to Princess Celestia and Princess Luna. We have a lot to tell them.
I'm so honored I get to hear it before the princesses,
Scarlet sarcastically commented, swiping her tail along her husband's torso with a sultry smirk on her face.
It just goes to show how important I am to my big, brave captain of the Royal Guard, huh?
Broadsword blushed, his son making gagging motions to communicate his childish disgust at the display. Scarlet could only stifle a fit of laughter at her family's actions, her own definitely having the desired effect. Shining Armor, for his part, simply snorted in amusement at the Alabaster Mare's teasing. And this is why it's never a good idea to have you in the same room as Cadence, the prince commented. We'd never survive.
Aw, you scared of your wife, your highness?
Scarlet now turned her teasing towards the Prince of the Crystal Empire. Shining Armor rubbed the back of his head. I am right now, after what I did.
And so you should.
All right, honey, that's enough, Broadsword declared. Sorry, Shining. Now that she's not soldiering about and, as Valiant would put it, beating up the bad guys, she has to find new things to target. Just a bit more verbally than physically. Thanks, Celestia, for that.
Because Mom was a really super awesome hero who served the princesses in the EUP, Valiant added in. Just like Dad does right now, except he's in the Royal Guard.
They're both good role models. Most of the time, Shining commented. Flurryheart more so looks up to Twilight as a role model. I remember her 5th birthday, where she asked if she was old enough to become a changeling queen.
But Flurry's an alicorn, Valiant noted in confusion. She's not a changeling. Valiant, when you were 4, you said you wanted to be a rocket ship. I did not.
Point is, children say weird things sometimes, Shining Armor stated. We of course explained why that isn't possible, though Twilight wasn't of any help. Scarlet raised an eyebrow.
Oh?
Being as much a doting aunt as she is, she often goes along with Flurryheart's fantasies. One time, when Twilight was full-sitting her over at the Equestrian Hive, not long after said 5th birthday, my sister let Flurryheart sit on her throne and give commands to her drones for a little while. Such commands included, "Brings me books," and "Oh, the sweets." At least Twilight overruled that latter one. Scarlet chuckled.
Well, as her aunt, it is her job to spoil the filly. What did the drones think of her commands?
Adorable, he simply responded, at least according to what Scorpion told me. And just like that, at the mention of the recently deceased changelings, the mood plummeted. The following silence was deafening to those who knew about Scorpion's fate, while Valiant was just confused even more as to why the grown-ups were suddenly so sad. A bad time? Vladimir asked as he entered the room, his stump having been cleaned and wrapped in new, pristine white bandages. Vladimir, Broadsword greeted. How's the wing? Or lack thereof, at least. Itches, Vladimir responded. But aside from that, I'm fine. A little tired after all of what happened, but nothing sleep won't help. Doctors probably would have kept me longer, though, if not for Princess Luna. Shining smirked, glancing at Scarlet. Told you. Anyway, Vladimir continued, I think the princesses want to see us, now. Shining Armor and Broadsword nodded, the latter turning to his family. He said some quick farewells to his wife and son, who were to stay in the barracks and wait for Broadsword until he was finished, where they would then immediately head on home afterwards. After he had spoken to them, he followed Vladimir and Shining Armor out the door, and the 3 longtime friends and brothers-in-arms began to head up to the study, where Princess Luna had stated she and her sister would be. Going up to Celestia's study felt like going up to the head teacher's office in a high school. Of course, Shining Armor knew all too well from Twilight that, in an alternate reality, she was one. That thought didn't help, and they seemed to end up in her study often, though that was probably because that's where she would hold all of her private meetings. There was some idle chatter on the way there, mostly about what kind of prosthetic Vladimir would receive, but nothing substantial. The journey itself didn't seem to take all that long, and soon enough they found themselves once again at Celestia's study, where they were quickly admitted entrance. As they did enter, they found Celestia and Luna deep in discussion. That conversation, however, came to a quick end once the three stallions made themselves known.
"Ah, my little ponies, welcome,"
Celestia greeted with her usual motherly outlook.
"How are you all? Especially you, Vladimir."
"We're all fine," Vladimir responded. "I could be better, but I'm dealing with it."
"So I see,"
Celestia said, humming slightly as she examined his bandaged stump from her position behind her desk.
"I would not worry about expenses for a prosthetic. I know limb actuators are expensive, but my sister and I will pay for it all for you."
Vladimir's eyes widened. "Your Highness, that's not necessary."
"You are a captain of my royal guard,"
Luna spoke up.
"and you lost your wing in the line of duty. It is only proper that one be provided to you with no expense on you personally. It is not up for debate."
Vladimir's mouth opened and closed like a goldfish for a few moments before he managed to bow his head. "Thank you, I greatly appreciate it."
"No thanks are necessary, Captain. As I said, it is only proper."
"Might I ask, when can I expect it?"
"Soon,"
Celestia stated, picking up a folder on her desk with her magic and levitating it over to Vladimir.
"This is the pony who shall craft it. One of the best in the profession, as I understand it."
Vladimir opened up the file and looked at the photograph of the pony inside. His wing was to be fitted by a guy, according to the file, by the name of Circuit Breaker. He was a Pegasus stallion with a blue coat and a neon green, light blue mane. His cutie mark, which was shown clearly in the file, was 3 gears getting struck by 1 bolt of electricity. "I'm sure he'll do a good job of it," Vladimir said.
"As are we,"
Celestia agreed.
"And of course there is room for suggestion by you, and what you want from your new wing."
"There is, huh?" Vladimir hummed and thought. He already had a feature in mind that he would have added to his prosthetic.
"But enough about that,"
Celestia continued on.
"Tell us everything, from the moment you left Canterlot, all the way until you returned to us."
And so they did. Celestia and Luna simply listened intently and patiently. The 3 ponies told the exact same story they told Scarlet. However, this version of it contained far more detail to give their rulers the best grasp of the situation as possible. They told of their crash landing and the losses they suffered as a result. They told of the wolves and dragon, what they found at the Hive, the encounter with the Ursa Major in the mines, and finally, the fate of Queen Draco herself. By the time the 3 were finished, the alicorns looked grave indeed.
"Draco's death is most regrettable,"
Luna stated when the stallions had finally finished talking.
"Both as Twilight Sparkle's friend, and as a voice for furthering relations between the changelings and Equestria." "Speaking of Twilight,"
Celestia continued on from where Luna left off,
"for her to bypass meeting with me altogether, even in a hurry, is unlike her. She came to us before heading north because she knew the ponies are unaffected by this blight. And yet, she leaves without so much as a word or ask for further assistance." "Perhaps she feels responsible for all the deaths that occurred, and doesn't want any more lives spent for her sake,"
Luna suggested.
"She might also feel that we're unneeded at the Council Hive." "The latter I doubt,"
Celestia stated.
"but the former theory does sound like her. Tell me, did you notice anything off about Twilight when you were returning home?"
The 3 stallions looked between one another, and in the end it was Shining Armor who stepped forwards to speak. "She was... damaged. I think that's a good way to describe it. Do you,
remember how she was when Chrysalis died?
That, as her sudden flinch conveyed, was a subject that Celestia had memories of that she would rather forget.
You have no right to criticize me, Princess.
Twilight growled.
Twilight?
Celestia whispered.
You're the one who decided to send 6 teenagers to deal with your mess. To redeem a sister who was only like she was because you neglected her. You sent those same teenagers to deal with this court for you as well. And when it came down to it, you didn't even realize that your own niece had been replaced by a changeling. Before I knew who she was, I was momentarily suspicious. And had I acted on that and tried to expose her, I doubt you, being as engrossed in the wedding as you were, would have even believed me. How can you say that? Of course I would have. Really?
Twilight asked doubtfully.
It must be so nice being you. Sitting so high up on your throne while sending others to do your dirty work. Keeping a pristine image nice and squeaky clean. She was that bad?
Celestia asked carefully.
Near enough.
Shining responded with a sigh. She's taken Draco's death, along with the deaths of Scorpion and the others, really hard. It's all taken a toll on her. But she was resolute, determined to stop the one behind all of this, which is why she sent Spike for her friends. Celestia closed her eyes, deep in thought for a moment.
She's already left the city? Yes, sister, Luna stated. She wasted no time in moving on. Then there's no chance in stopping her and changing her mind. Damn it.
Celestia stood up and rounded the desk, coming into position next to her younger sister.
It seems it's out of our hooves for now. But I will be keeping a close eye on her changelings at the embassy. Should she need help, I want to be there personally. This has become far too serious a situation, and I fear for her.
As do I, Shining admitted. I'll be staying here for that very reason. Celestia nodded.
Fair enough. I've already asked Cadence to bring Flurryheart and come to Canterlot anyway.
Shining Armor paled. You have?
Yes. We may need her help in the future, and I also understand you need a long discussion once she arrives.
Shining made a strangled squeak, suddenly feeling faint. But, in the end, he had to face the music sometime. How long until she gets here?
Luckily for you, she has some business to finish up in the Crystal Empire first,
Luna stated sternly.
A week at maximum. She wishes she could be here sooner, but our duties are most taxing at times.
Even with 3 of you, ruling a country must be busy work, Vladimir commented. Are we finished here? Celestia nodded.
Yes, for now. Go and rest. I believe I shall have need of you again soon enough.